Princess Hyejin of the Thexian Empire stood near the large window of the space station. She watched a small human ship slowly move closer to dock with her station. Her four eyes looked at the ship with anger and doubt. Her body was covered in scales that changed colors based on her feelings. Right now they were deep purple, which meant she was not happy at all. The princess was tall and powerful. She came from a family that had ruled the Thexian Empire for hundreds of years. Her people were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors and brilliant scientists. They had conquered many worlds and built technology that other species could only dream about. Next to her stood her personal guard, Minyo. He was a large Thexian soldier, with dark green scales and multiple scars across his arms. He had served the royal family for 20 years and had seen many battles. These humans, Princess Hyejin said in a cold voice, they say they can fix anything. We will see if their words are true or just empty boasting. Minho nodded but said nothing. He knew the princess was in a difficult situation. Behind them, locked inside a special reinforced room, was the source of all their problems. The war beast called Taejin. Taejin was not just any creature. He was a legend among the Thexian military. The beast stood 4 meters tall when he raised himself up on his back legs. His body was covered in thick black armor plating that could stop plasmoblasts. His claws were as long as swords and could cut through solid steel like paper. His teeth could crush bones with one bite. But Taejin was more than just physical power. He had been enhanced with the most advanced technology the Empire possessed. Neural implants connected his brain to computer systems. Biomechanical organs gave him strength far beyond natural limits. Genetic modifications made him faster and smarter than any normal creature could be. For 3 generations, war beasts like Taejin had been bonded to the royal family. The bond was created through advanced genetic programming. It meant that Taejin would only obey members of the royal bloodline. He was completely loyal, completely deadly, and completely under control, or at least he had been. 3 months ago, something went wrong. Taejin started acting strange. He would not follow commands properly. Sometimes he would stand still for hours, not moving at all. Other times he would suddenly become violent for no reason. The neural implants in his spine flickered with red warning lights instead of the normal steady blue. Princess Hyejin had called the best biotechnicians in the Empire. The first one studied Taejin for 2 weeks. He ran every test he could think of. He found nothing wrong. When he tried to adjust the neural implants, Taejin attacked him. The technician survived but lost his right arm. The second technician was more careful. She used remote tools and kept her distance, but she also found nothing useful. The technology in Taejin was very old. Some of it dated back almost 100 years. The original designers were dead. Many of the technical documents had been lost in a fire decades ago. The third technician did not even want to try. He looked at the diagnostic reports and shook his head. He told the princess that Taejin was probably beyond repair. He suggested that the war beast should be put down, and a new one should be grown to replace him. Princess Hyejin had been furious. Taejin was not just a weapon or a tool. He had served her family with perfect loyalty. He had saved her father's life in battle. He had been part of the family since before she was born. She would not give up on him so easily. In desperation, she had sent out a general distress call to nearby systems. She offered a huge reward for anyone who could fix the problem. She did not expect much response. The Thexian Empire was proud and did not often ask for outside help. But then the humans answered. The human government sent a message saying they had technicians who specialized in complex biomechanical systems. They said one of their best people was in a nearby sector and could arrive within 2 days. They asked for no payment except for standard docking fees and a small amount of food supplies. Princess Hyejin had been suspicious. Humans were a relatively new species on the galactic stage. They had only developed faster than light travel about 50 years ago. Compared to the Thexians who had been spacefaring for over 1,000 years, humans were like children. But she was also desperate. She agreed to let them try. Now she watched as the human ship finished docking. It was a small vessel, built for utility rather than beauty. It had the marks and scratches of a ship that traveled often and worked hard. Not at all like the sleek warships of the Thexian fleet. The docking tube connected with a solid clunk. Lights flickered green, showing a good seal. The airlock began its cycle. Princess Hyejin expected to see a team of technicians emerge. Perhaps 5 or 6 humans carrying large cases of equipment. Maybe they would have robots or drones to help them. Surely they would bring whatever advanced tools they needed. The airlock door slid open. One person stepped through. He was alone. The human was male and appeared young by human standards. He had dark hair that looked like it needed to be cut. He wore a simple gray jumpsuit that was clean but showed signs of wear. A tool belt hung around his waist with various instruments attached. He carried a small bag in one hand and what looked like a portable computer tablet in the other. That was it. No team, no large equipment, no robots, just one human with a tool belt. Princess Heejin, the human said. His voice was calm and polite. He gave a small bow which was respectful but not deep enough to show fear. My name is Doyen. I am the chief technician from the human vessel Terra Explorer. I understand you have a war beast that needs repairs. Princess Heejin stared at him. Her scales shifted to an even darker purple, almost black. This was an insult. The Empire had asked for help with a serious problem, and the humans sent one technician who looked barely old enough to have proper training. You, she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. They sent only you? Where is your team? Where is your equipment? Where are your specialists? Doyen smiled slightly. It was not a mocking smile, but a friendly one. He patted the tool bag at his side. Everything I need is right here, Your Highness. I have worked on biomechanical systems for 8 years. I have fixed problems on 15 different species. If you let me examine your war beast, I am confident I can help. Minho stepped forward. His hand moved toward his weapon. Human, you should show more respect. Do you understand what you are dealing with? This is not some simple repair job. Doyen looked at the guard without fear. I understand this is important to you. That is why I came as quickly as I could. I promise I will do my very best work. Princess Heejin held up one hand and Minho stepped back. She studied the human carefully with all 4 of her eyes. He was small compared to her. Fragile-looking. Humans had no natural armor, no claws, no enhanced strength. By all physical measures, they were weak, but there was something in the way he stood. Something calm and confident. He was not afraid of her or of Minho or of the situation. He seemed genuinely ready to help. Very well, Princess Heejin said slowly. I will give you one chance, human Doyen, but you must understand something clearly. Taijin has killed before. He is a war beast bred and trained for combat. In his current unstable condition, he is extremely dangerous. 3 of our best biotechnicians tried to fix him. 1 lost an arm. The others failed completely. She stepped closer to Doyen, towering over him. Her scales flickered with red highlights showing her seriousness. If you fail, if you make his condition worse, if you harm my war beast in any way, you will not leave this station alive. Do you understand me? Doyen met her gaze steadily. He nodded once. I understand, Your Highness. Now may I see Taijin, please? Princess Heejin turned and began walking toward the containment area. Minho followed close behind, keeping one eye on the human. Doyen walked calmly after them, looking around the station with interest but not fear. As they walked through the corridors, other Thexians stopped to stare at the human. News had spread quickly that an outsider was here to attempt what their own people could not do. Some looked curious. Others looked angry that aliens had been called in to solve an Empire problem. Doyen ignored the stares. He simply followed the princess, occasionally making notes on his tablet. They reached the containment area. Through a thick reinforced window, Doyen could see into a large chamber, and there, pacing back and forth like a caged storm, was Taijin. The war beast was even more impressive than Doyen had imagined from the descriptions. Massive, powerful, covered in scars from old battles. But he could also see the problem immediately. The neural ports along Taijin's spine were flickering with unstable red light. The beast's movements were jerky and uncertain. His eyes looked confused and pained. How long has he been like this? Doyen asked quietly. 3 months, Princess Heijin replied. And getting worse each week? Doyen nodded slowly. He pressed his hand against the glass and watched Taijin pace. The war beast suddenly noticed the human and stopped. For a long moment, creature and man stared at each other through the barrier. Then Doyen smiled gently. Do not worry, he said softly, though he knew Taijin probably could not hear him. We are going to make you feel better. Princess Heijin watched this exchange with confusion. The human was talking to Taijin like he was a person, not a weapon. How strange these humans were. The containment chamber looked like a war zone. Deep claw marks cut across the reinforced metal walls in long, jagged lines. Some of the marks were so deep that they had gone through the outer layer of armor plating. The floor was scratched and dented from the weight of Tajan pacing back and forth for weeks. In one corner, a piece of monitoring equipment had been completely destroyed, crushed into unrecognizable metal scraps. The smell inside the chamber was strong and unpleasant. It was the scent of stress chemicals that Tajan's body produced when he was afraid or angry. To Thexians, this smell meant danger. It meant a creature was ready to attack. It meant death could come at any moment. Doyen stood at the entrance to the chamber. He wore no protective armor. He carried no weapons. He simply stood there with his small tool bag and his tablet computer, looking at Tajan with calm eyes. Around him, 6 Thexian guards held their weapons ready. They were plasma rifles, powerful enough to burn through solid steel. The guards were tense. Their fingers rested near the triggers. They had all heard what happened to the biotechnician who lost his arm. They were not going to let this human die without trying to save him. Behind a thick observation window, Princess Heejin watched with all 4 of her eyes focused on the scene. Her scales had shifted to a mixture of purple and yellow. Purple for anger and yellow for worry. Next to her stood Minho and 2 other senior members of her staff. "This is foolish," said Advisor Yunji, an older Thexian female with silver scales. "We should not let this human risk his life. If he dies in there, it could cause diplomatic problems with Earth." "He chose to come here," Princess Heejin replied. "He knows the risks." Inside the chamber, Tajan stopped pacing. The warbeast's head turned toward Doyen. All 6 of his eyes focused on this new small creature that had entered his territory. Tajan's body was massive and powerful. Even on all 6 legs, he stood taller than Doyen. When he opened his mouth slightly, rows of teeth reflected the chamber's lights. A low growl came from deep in Tajan's throat. It was a sound that made the guards grip their weapons tighter. It was the sound that came before an attack. Doyen did not run. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not call for help. Instead, he did something that shocked everyone watching. He sat down. Right there on the floor of the chamber, Doyen slowly lowered himself into a cross-legged sitting position. He moved carefully, making no sudden movements. He kept his hands visible and open. He looked down at his tablet, not staring directly at Tajan. "What is he doing?" Minho asked, confused. "I have no idea," Princess Heejin admitted. Doyen began speaking in a soft, steady voice. "Hello, Tajan. My name is Doyen. I know you do not feel good right now. I know you are hurting and confused. I am here to help you if you will let me." He pulled out a small scanning device from his tool bag. It looked like a simple handheld tool, nothing threatening. He pointed it toward Tajan but did not move from his sitting position. "I'm going to run some scans now. This will not hurt you at all. It is just going to give me information about what is wrong. You might hear a small beeping sound, but that is normal. Nothing to worry about." Tajan took a step forward, then another. His claws scraped against the metal floor, making a sound like knives on stone. He moved closer to the sitting human, his body low and cautious. The warning lights on his neural ports flickered faster, showing his agitation. The guards raised their weapons slightly. One of them spoke into a communication device. "Should we intervene?" Princess Heejin pressed a button on the intercom. "No, wait," Doyen continued talking in that same calm voice. "Yes, that is right. You can come closer if you want. I am not going to hurt you. I know you have been in pain for a long time. Those neural ports on your back must feel terrible, like a constant headache that never goes away. I have seen this problem before in other enhanced creatures." The warbeast moved even closer. He was now only 3 meters away from Doyen, close enough to kill the human in one quick movement. Tajan's breath came out in hot puffs of air. His eyes studied every detail of this strange small creature. Doyen looked at his scanning device. He made a few notes on his tablet. His hands were completely steady. When he spoke again, he sounded like he was having a normal conversation with a friend. "Just as I thought. Your neural implants are functioning, but the interface programming is wrong. See, your brain has been growing and changing over the years. That is normal. That is healthy. But the computer system in those implants is using old data from years ago. It is like trying to fit into clothes that are too small, uncomfortable and painful." Tajan tilted his massive head to one side. It was an almost curious gesture. The growling had stopped. "I can fix this," Doyen said gently. "But I need you to trust me a little bit. Can you do that?" The warbeast took another step forward. Now he was only 2 meters away. One of his large clawed hands reached out slowly toward Doyen. Prepare to fire, one of the guards whispered urgently. Princess Hyjin's scales flashed bright yellow with fear. Her hand moved toward the emergency control that would flood the chamber with sleeping gas. But something made her pause. She wanted to see what would happen. Taejin's claw moved through the air. It was easily large enough to crush a human skull, sharp enough to cut through bone, powerful enough to kill with one strike. The claw touched Doyen's shoulder, gently. Taejin did not attack. He did not strike. He simply touched the human with surprising care, as if testing whether this small creature was real or not. Doyen remained perfectly still. He let the war beast examine him. After a moment, he slowly raised one of his own hands. He moved it very carefully toward Taejin's head. "I'm going to touch you now," Doyen said softly. "Just on the side of your head. It will not hurt." His hand made contact with Taejin's armored skull, just below one of the sensory horns that grew from the beast's head. Doyen's fingers found a spot and pressed lightly, rubbing in small circles. The effect was immediate and stunning. Taejin's eyes half closed. The tension in his massive body began to relax. A sound came from his chest, but it was not a growl. It was a deep rumbling purr, similar to what some earth cats made when they were content. Behind the observation window, no one spoke. No one moved. They could not believe what they were seeing. The most dangerous war beast in the Thexian fleet, a creature that had killed enemy soldiers by the dozens, a being bred and enhanced for pure combat ability, was purring like a pet while a human scratched his head. "Impossible," Advisor Yunji whispered. "Record this," Princess Hyejin ordered. "Record everything. No one will believe it otherwise." Doyen continued rubbing that spot on Taejin's head. "There you go. That feels better, does it not? You are just scared and hurting. You are not a bad beast. You are just sick and no one understood how to help you properly." Taejin leaned into the touch. His massive body shifted closer to Doyen. The war beast was now so close that his hot breath washed over the human's face. But there was no aggression in the movement, only a desperate need for comfort. "Good boy," Doyen said, and his voice carried genuine affection. "You are such a good boy, Taejin. Now will you let me look at those neural ports? I need to examine them closely so I can fix the problem." The war beast made a small sound, almost like a whine. Then slowly he lowered himself to the ground. His 6 legs folded beneath him and he laid his body flat on the chamber floor. It was a position of complete submission and trust. In all the years that Taejin had served the royal family, he had never done this for anyone. Doyen stood up carefully. He walked around to Taejin's back where the neural ports were located along the creature's spine. He could see them clearly now. 8 ports in total, each one connected deep into Taejin's nervous system. They glowed with that unstable red light, flickering on and off in an irregular pattern. He pulled out several tools from his bag: a microscanner, an adjustment probe, a diagnostic connector. He began to work, his hands moving with practiced skill. "The connections are good," Doyen muttered to himself as he worked. "The hardware is old but still functional. The problem is definitely in the software layer. Yes, just as I thought. The neural mapping is completely out of date." He plugged a cable from his tablet into one of the ports. His fingers moved quickly across the screen, typing commands and reading data streams. Princess Hyejin activated the intercom again. "Human, what have you found?" Doyen did not look up from his work. "Your Highness, the problem is actually quite simple once you understand what is happening. Taejin's brain structure has changed naturally over time. His neural pathways have developed new connections as he learned and grew. But the computer interface is still using a map of his brain from many years ago. It is trying to send signals to places that do not exist anymore and ignoring new pathways that have formed. Our biotechnicians examined those same systems," the princess said with frustration in her voice. "They found nothing wrong. That is because they were looking at it as a biological problem," Doyen explained patiently. "But this is not biology. This is a software error. The biology is fine. Taejin's brain is healthy and working perfectly. The technology just needs to be updated to match his current neural structure." He pressed several commands on his tablet. "I am going to run a full scan of his current brain structure. This will take about 10 minutes. Then I can reprogram the interface to match his actual neural pathways instead of the old outdated map." As Doyen worked, Taejin remained perfectly still. The war beast had complete trust in this small human who had shown him kindness and understanding. Every few minutes, Doyun would pause to pat Taijin's armored hide or speak gentle words of encouragement. The guards slowly lowered their weapons. They no longer saw an immediate threat. What they saw instead was something none of them had ever witnessed before. They saw a human and a Thexian war beast working together in perfect harmony. The containment chamber was a mess. Claw marks gouged the reinforced walls, and the acrid smell of Gorath's stress pheromones filled the air. The war beast paced in the corner, its 6 legs moving in an unsettling rhythm, neural ports along its spine flickering with unstable energy. Doyun stood at the entrance, studying the creature carefully. Around him, Thexian guards gripped their weapons nervously. Through the observation window, Princess Valara watched with her arms crossed. "Gorath," Doyun said softly. "Hey there, big guy." The beast's head snapped toward him, multiple eyes focusing on the small human. A low growl rumbled from its throat, a sound that made the guard step back. Doyun didn't move. He simply sat down cross-legged on the floor, his movements slow and deliberate. He pulled out a handheld scanner and began taking readings, talking in a calm, steady voice. "Yeah, I can see why you're upset. Those neural ports are firing all wrong. Must feel like a constant headache, huh?" Gorath took a step forward, claws scraping against metal. "Easy," Doyun continued, not looking directly at the beast. "I'm not here to hurt you. Just want to help. See this?" He held up a small device. "This is going to read your neural patterns. Won't hurt at all." The war beast moved closer, its hot breath washing over the technician. One massive claw extended toward Doyun's chest. The guards raised their weapons. Valara pressed against the observation window, her scales flashing with alarm. Doyun remained perfectly still, his voice never wavering. "That's right. Come check me out. I'm not a threat." Gorath's claw touched Doyun's shoulder gently. The beast's head tilted, studying the human with what almost looked like curiosity. Then Doyun did something that made everyone watching gasp. He reached up slowly and touched the side of Gorath's armored head, right below one of its sensory horns. "There we go," he whispered. "You're just scared and in pain. We're going to fix that." The war beast that had mauled 3 biotechnicians leaned into the human's touch and made a sound almost like a purr. 3 hours had passed since Doyun entered the containment chamber. Princess Hijin had not moved from her position at the observation window. She watched everything with intense focus, trying to understand what she was seeing. The human technician moved around Taijin with complete confidence. He checked readings on his tablet. He adjusted settings on the neural ports. He spoke constantly in that same calm, friendly voice. And Taijin, the mighty war beast who had terrorized 3 biotechnicians, followed Doyun's every movement with trusting eyes. "How is this possible?" Princess Hijin asked for the 10th time. Minho stood beside her, equally amazed. "I do not know, Your Highness. In all my years of service, I have never seen Taijin act this way with anyone. Not even with your father, who raised him from a juvenile." Advisor Yunji had been taking notes on everything. Her silver scales showed a color of deep confusion, mixed with scientific curiosity. The genetic bond should be absolute. Taijin was engineered to respond only to royal bloodline markers. This human has none of those markers, yet the beast obeys him without question. Inside the chamber, Doyun had finished running his diagnostic scans. He studied the data on his tablet carefully, occasionally nodding to himself. Taijin lay on his side on the floor, completely relaxed. One of his 6 eyes tracked Doyun's movements, but there was no fear or aggression in that gaze. "Only patience." "All right, Taijin," Doyun said, kneeling down next to the war beast. "I have good news. The problem is exactly what I thought it was. Your neural pathways have grown and changed over the years, which is completely normal and healthy. But the computer system has been using an old map. It is like someone giving you directions to a building using a map from 10 years ago. But many of the streets have changed since then." Taijin made a small sound, almost like he understood. Doyun smiled and patted the beast's armored shoulder. "I can fix this, but I need to upload new programming to your neural ports. It will feel strange for a moment. You might feel tingling or slight pressure in your head, but it will not hurt, I promise. Do you trust me?" The war beast shifted slightly and placed his massive head on the floor right next to Doyun's leg. It was an answer. "Good boy," Doyun said warmly. He connected a cable from his tablet to the main neural port at the base of Taijin's skull. His fingers moved quickly across the screen, entering commands and uploading new code. Princess Hyejin activated the intercom. Human Doyen, what exactly are you doing to my war beast? Doyen glanced up at the observation window. Your Highness, I'm uploading new interface software. Think of it like updating the translation program between Tajin's brain and the mechanical implants. The old program was causing errors because it did not match his current neural structure. This new program will adapt automatically as his brain continues to develop. Is it dangerous? No more dangerous than any other software update. I have done this procedure on 12 different enhanced creatures over the past few years. All of them recovered completely. He turned his attention back to the tablet. Beginning upload now. Tajin, you might feel something weird. Just stay calm and breathe normally. The neural ports along Tajin's spine began to glow brighter. The unstable red light flickered rapidly for several seconds. Tajin's body tensed slightly and a small whine escaped from his throat. Doyun immediately placed his hand on the war beast's head, rubbing soothingly. I know. Almost done. You are doing great. Just a few more seconds. The lights flickered faster, then suddenly changed. The red glow faded and was replaced by a steady, calm blue light. All 8 neural ports glowed with perfect synchronization, pulsing gently in time with Tajin's heartbeat. The change in Tajin was immediate and dramatic. His eyes, which had been clouded and confused for months, suddenly became clear and focused. The tension that had been holding his body rigid melted away. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly, as if he had been holding stress inside for a very long time. Doyen unplugged the cable and put his tablet back in his bag. There you go, buddy.
How do you feel now?
Tajin stood up smoothly. His movements were fluid and coordinated, nothing like the jerky, uncertain motions he had been making before. He stretched his 6 legs one at a time, testing his body. Then he turned to face Doyun. For a moment, Princess Heejin felt fear. What if the upload had failed? What if Tajin attacked? But the war beast simply walked up to Doyen and nuzzled against him affectionately. The deep purring sound filled the chamber again. Tajin's tail, which had been hanging limp for weeks, now swayed back and forth in an expression of pure happiness. Doyen laughed and scratched under Tajin's jaw. Yes, I am happy too. You feel so much better now, do you not? Behind the observation window, stunned silence filled the room. The guards who had been ready to shoot now stood with their mouths open in shock. Advisor Yunji dropped her datapad. Even Minho, who prided himself on staying calm in any situation, could not hide his amazement. Princess Hyejin finally found her voice. Bring me down there now. Your Highness, is that wise? Minho asked with concern. If that human can stand in a room with Tajin safely, then so can I. He is my war beast. I need to see this with my own eyes, not through a window. 2 minutes later, Princess Hyejin entered the containment chamber. The door slid open and she stepped inside cautiously. She had been around Tajin her whole life, but the past few months had made her wary. The last time she had entered this chamber, Tajin had lunged at her and nearly caused serious injury. Tajin's head snapped around at the sound of the door. He saw Princess Hyejin and his body language changed immediately. He stood up straighter, more alert. The genetic programming recognized her as royal bloodline. His loyalty was hardwired into his very cells. But something was different. Tajin looked at Doyen, then looked at Princess Hyejin, then back at Doyen. It was as if the war beast was asking permission. Doyen noticed this and smiled. Go ahead, Tajin. That is your princess. Go say hello. Only then did Tajin move toward Princess Hyejin. He approached her carefully and lowered his head in a gesture of respect and submission. But his movements were controlled and gentle, completely different from the aggressive, unpredictable behavior he had shown recently. Princess Hyejin reached out slowly and touched Tajin's head. The beast leaned into her touch just as he had done with Doyen. Relief flooded through her. Her war beast was back. Her friend was healed. Thank you, human Doyen, she said quietly, and her voice held genuine gratitude. You have done what our best minds could not. Doyen walked over to stand beside them. Your Highness, may I show you something? I think it will help you understand what happened here. She nodded. Doyen pulled out a small treat from his pocket. It was a food cube designed for enhanced creatures, something he had requested from the station's supplies earlier. He held it up so Tajin could see it. Tajin, sit. Doyun said in a normal voice. The war beast immediately sat down on his haunches, his eyes focused on the treat. Good boy. Doyun tossed him the treat and Tajin caught it easily. Princess Hyejin stared. He obeyed you. Without the genetic bond, without any programming, he simply obeyed your command. Yes, Doyen said, but it is not really obedience. May I try something to demonstrate? Before she could answer, Doyen pointed to a spot near the wall. Taejin, go stand over there, please. The war beast looked at Doyen, then walked to the indicated spot and sat down. His tail swayed and his eyes stayed fixed on the human, waiting for the next instruction. Princess Heejin felt her scales shift through several colors rapidly. This should not be possible. Taejin was bonded to her family through generations of genetic engineering. The loyalty was supposed to be absolute and exclusive. Yet here was this human giving commands to her war beast and being obeyed instantly. How? She demanded. How did you create this bond? What technology did you use? Doyen shook his head. No technology, Your Highness. No genetic manipulation. No programming. What you are seeing is not a bond created by science. It is a bond created by trust. Trust? Princess Hyejin repeated the word like it was foreign to her. Yes, trust and respect. Taejin was in pain and frightened. I helped him and treated him with kindness. He learned that I would not hurt him, that I cared about his well-being. So now he trusts me. It is that simple. But the genetic bond still exists, Doyen assured her. Taejin will always be loyal to you and your family. That is part of who he is, but he can also form relationships with others based on how they treat him. He is not just a programmed weapon. He is a living, thinking, feeling being. Princess Hyejin looked at Taejin sitting patiently by the wall. She thought about everything she had witnessed in the past 3 hours. This human had done the impossible, not through superior technology or greater knowledge, but through something much simpler. He had treated Taejin like a person who deserved kindness. I do not understand your species, Princess Hyejin admitted. You are physically weak. Your technology is primitive compared to ours, yet you accomplished in 1 day what our empire could not do in 3 months. Doyen smiled gently. Maybe that is because we look at problems differently. We do not see creatures like Taejin as just tools or weapons. We see them as partners, as friends. Over the next 3 hours, Princess Valara watched something she would have deemed impossible mere cycles ago. Princess Hyejin ordered a private meeting in her personal chambers 2 hours after Doyen finished repairing Taejin. She needed to understand what had happened. She needed answers that made sense to her. The room was decorated in traditional Thexian style. The walls were covered in honor banners showing the victories of her family. Weapons from famous battles hung in displays. Everything in the room spoke of power and conquest. Doyen sat in a chair that was too large for him, clearly designed for Thexian bodies. He held a cup of hot tea that he had brought from his ship. The princess had offered him Thexian drinks, but he had politely declined, saying his human stomach might not handle alien beverages well. Princess Hyejin sat across from him. Her scales had settled into a deep blue color, which meant she was thinking deeply. Advisor Yunji stood nearby, recording the conversation. Minho was also present, standing guard by the door. Explain to me how you did this, Princess Hyejin said. It was not a request. It was a command from someone used to being obeyed. Doyen took a sip of his tea and set the cup down carefully. Which part would you like me to explain, Your Highness? The technical repair or the behavioral approach? Both. Start with the technical aspects. Our biotechnicians are among the best in the Empire. They studied for decades to master their craft. Yet you solved the problem in a few hours. How? Doyen nodded. The technical solution was actually quite simple once I understood what I was looking at. Your technicians were approaching it as a biological problem. Because Taejin is a living creature, they ran medical scans. They looked for disease or damage in his organic systems. They tested his genetic code for errors. That is the correct approach for a biomechanical being, Advisor Yunji said from her position by the wall. Maybe, Doyen replied respectfully, but they missed the real issue. The problem was not in Taejin's biology at all. His body was perfectly healthy. His brain was functioning normally. The issue was in the computer interface between his biological brain and the mechanical implants. Princess Hyejin leaned forward. Our technicians did examine the implants. They found no hardware failures. Exactly. The hardware was fine. But nobody checked the software. See, those neural implants use a map of Taejin's brain to know where to send signals. But that map was created years ago when Taejin was younger. Brains change over time. They grow new connections. Old pathways get stronger or weaker. It is a natural process called neural plasticity. He pulled out his tablet and showed them a diagram. This is Taejin's neural structure from the original implant installation 10 years ago. And this is his current neural structure that I scanned today. See the differences? There are dozens of new pathways. Some old ones have changed completely. Advisor Yoonji came closer to look at the screen. Her eyes widened as she studied the comparison. By the ancestors. The variance is significant. How did we miss this? Because you were not looking for it, Doyen said simply. You assumed the interface would adapt automatically, but the system was never programmed to update itself. It just kept using the old map, trying to send signals to places that no longer existed or ignoring new pathways entirely. That caused confusion, pain, and behavioral problems. Princess Hyejin studied the diagrams carefully. She was royalty, but she was also educated in science and technology. She understood what she was seeing. So you simply updated the neural map? More than that. I reprogrammed the interface to scan and adapt continuously. Now it will automatically adjust as Taejin's brain continues to develop. He will never have this problem again. That is brilliant, Advisor Yoonji said quietly, and embarrassingly simple. We were so focused on complex solutions that we missed the obvious answer. Doyen smiled. It happens. Sometimes when you are too close to a problem, you cannot see the simple solution. Fresh eyes help. Princess Hyejin sat back in her chair. Her scales shifted slightly to include some green, which indicated growing respect. Very well. That explains the technical repair. Now explain the other part. How did you get Taejin to trust you? To obey you? He is genetically bonded to my bloodline. He should not respond to outsiders at all. This was the question Doyen had been expecting. He took another sip of tea before answering. Your Highness, may I ask you a question first? When Taejin started having problems, how did your people respond? Princess Hyejin frowned. We tried to fix him, obviously. We brought in experts. We ran tests. But how did you treat Taejin himself? Did anyone try to comfort him? To make him feel safe? The princess was silent for a moment. He is a war beast. Comfort is not part of his function. With respect, Your Highness, that is where human thinking differs from yours. Doyen set his tea down and leaned forward, his expression earnest. On Earth, we have been working with animals for thousands of years. Long before we had advanced technology or genetic engineering, we learned to partner with other species. Dogs helped us hunt, horses helped us travel, birds helped us find food, dolphins helped us fish. Those are simple creatures, Minho said from his position by the door. Taejin is a sophisticated war beast with enhanced intelligence. That makes it even more important to treat him well, Doyen replied. The more intelligent a creature is, the more emotional needs it has. Taejin is not just a weapon. He thinks, he feels. He gets scared. He feels pain. He needs companionship and reassurance just like any other intelligent being. Princess Hyejin's scales flickered with confusion. But we do take care of him. He is fed the best food. His chamber is maintained. He receives regular medical checkups. Those are physical needs, Doyen agreed. But what about emotional needs? When was the last time someone spent time with Taejin just to be with him? Not to train him or test him or use him for something. Just to keep him company. To let him know he matters as more than a tool. The room fell silent. Princess Hyejin looked at Advisor Yoonji. Yoonji looked at Minho. None of them had an answer. Never, Princess Hyejin finally admitted. We have never done that. It never occurred to us that it would be necessary. Doyen nodded. That is the difference between human culture and yours. We learned early that emotional bonds make partnerships stronger. A dog that loves its owner will work harder than a dog that is only trained. A horse that trusts its rider will go farther than one that is forced to obey. The same applies to enhanced creatures like Taejin. But he has genetic programming that ensures his loyalty, Advisor Yoonji protested. Programming can ensure obedience, Doyen said, but it cannot create genuine partnership. When I entered Taejin's chamber, I did not try to command him or force him to comply. I sat down. I made myself vulnerable. I spoke to him gently. I showed him through my actions that I was not a threat, that I cared about his well-being. He paused to let that sink in. Taejin was in pain and afraid. Nobody had tried to make him feel better. Everyone just tried to fix his hardware and got frustrated when he reacted badly. But I treated him like a person who was suffering. I gave him comfort and kindness. So he learned to trust me. Princess Hyejin stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the stars beyond the station. Her mind was working through everything she had heard. You are saying that our entire approach has been wrong. Not wrong, Doyen said carefully, just incomplete. You have amazing technology. You have brilliant scientists. You have accomplished incredible things with genetic engineering, but you have forgotten to consider the emotional lives of the creatures you create. Emotions are inefficient, Minho said. They cloud judgment. They make beings unreliable. Doyen shook his head. Emotions are what make life worth living. They are what create real bonds between beings. Yes, they can be complicated, but they also lead to loyalty that goes beyond programming. Trust that goes deeper than genetics. He stood up and walked to stand beside Princess Heejin at the window. Your Highness, let me tell you something about humans. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the smartest. We do not have the best technology, but we have one thing that many other species seem to lack. What is that? She asked quietly. We understand that connection matters more than control. We know that treating others with kindness and respect creates stronger relationships than force or programming ever could. We learned this lesson thousands of years ago when we were still living in caves and befriending wolves. Princess Heejin turned to face him. Her 4 eyes studied his face carefully. Those wolves became your dogs, correct? Yes, and they became our partners, our friends, our family. The bond between humans and dogs is so strong that we changed each other's evolution. We grew together. We helped each other survive and thrive. And you think we should have this kind of relationship with our war beasts? Doyen smiled. I think Taejin would be even more effective if he knew that he was valued for more than just his combat abilities. If he felt loved and cared for. If he knew that his life mattered beyond his function as a weapon. Princess Heejin was quiet for a long time. Finally she spoke. You have given me much to think about, human Doyun. Princess Valara demanded a meeting in her private chambers immediately after Doyun completed the repairs. She had to understand what she had witnessed. The human sat across from her, drinking something called coffee from a container he had brought. He looked completely at ease despite being in the presence of alien royalty. Princess Valara called a meeting of her senior staff. Present were Commander Rethix, Chief of Security Thorix, the station's chief biotechnician Yanara, and at Valara's specific request, Doyen Diar. The human looked slightly uncomfortable being in a room full of high-ranking Thexian officials, but he accepted the seat offered to him. We need to understand something, Valara began. The human has accomplished in days what our empire's best minds could not achieve in months. I require an explanation that makes sense. Biotechnician Yanara's scales showed embarrassment, a mottled brown color. Your Highness, I have reviewed Doyen's work. His technical solutions were elegantly simple, things we should have seen. Then why didn't we? Thorix demanded. Because, Yanara said slowly. We were approaching the problem from a Thexian perspective. We saw the war beasts as weapons first, living things second. We tried to fix the technology without addressing the biological distress it was causing. Exactly, Doyen added. No offense, but your approach treats these creatures like machines with biological components. We humans learned a long time ago that doesn't work. You can't separate the technology from the being using it. Commander Rethix leaned forward. Explain your methods. How did you know what to do? Doyen thought for a moment. On Earth, we have a saying. All creatures deserve compassion. It doesn't matter if something is a pet, a work animal, or a military asset. If it's alive and sentient, it deserves to be treated with respect and care. But they are bred for war, Thorix protested. Enhanced, modified, trained for combat. That doesn't make them any less alive, Doyen replied. Look, I grew up on a farm. We had dogs that helped herd livestock. Those dogs worked hard, had important jobs, but they were also part of the family. We played with them, talked to them, made sure they were happy. And you know what? They worked better, lived longer, and were more reliable than any animal that was just treated as a tool. Valara's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. So you are saying our war beasts need emotional care? I'm saying they're living beings with complex needs. Yes, they need maintenance and training, but they also need connection, understanding, and kindness. When Gorath was in pain and confused, nobody stopped to comfort him. They just tried to force him to comply. That made everything worse. Yanara's scales brightened, a sign of realization, the stress responses, the aggressive behavior. It was all fear-based. Exactly. And fear makes everything worse for any species. Doyen looked around the room. You've built amazing things. Your technology is incredible, but maybe you've been so focused on efficiency and function that you forgot about the beings you're working with. There was a long silence. Finally, Princess Valara spoke, her voice thoughtful. Humanity was added to our database 3 cycles ago. The reports classified your species as primitive, technologically inferior, lacking in military might, politically fractured. The recommendation was minimal engagement. She paused, her 4 eyes focusing intently on Doyen. I believe those reports were catastrophically incomplete. Any species that can see value where we saw none, that can succeed where we failed through compassion rather than force, such a species is far from primitive. Commander Rethix nodded slowly. The princess is correct. We have much to learn from humans. 2 weeks later, Doyen prepared to depart the station. His ship was loaded, his mission officially complete. But there was one last thing to do. He stood in Goreth's chamber one final time. The war beast sat before him, fully healed, calm and healthy. Behind them, Princess Valara watched. You did well, buddy, Doyen said, scratching behind Gorath's sensory horns. I'm proud of you. Goreth made a low, mournful sound. I know, Doyen said softly. I'm going to miss you too. But you belong here with your princess. She's going to take good care of you now. He turned to Valara. Remember what we talked about.
Spend time with him.
Not just training, actual time. Talk to him. Let him know he matters as more than just a weapon. Valara stepped forward, something she had never done casually with Goreth before. The war beast watched her with those intelligent eyes. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out and touched his armored head the way she had seen Doyen do. Goreth leaned into her touch. I understand now, Valara said quietly. I have been his owner, but not his companion. That changes today. Doyen smiled. That's all I wanted to hear. As he turned to leave, Goreth blocked his path. The massive war beast looked from Doyen to Valara and back again, then did something surprising. He gently pushed the princess toward the human with his snout. Valara's scales flickered with amusement. It seems Goreth has an opinion on your departure. He has good instincts, Doyen said. But I really do need to go. There are other ships, other crews that need help. Valara's expression grew serious. Before you leave, I have a proposal. The Thexian Empire would like to establish a formal contract with humanity, specifically with technicians like yourself. We have hundreds of war beasts, thousands of working creatures. They all deserve better care than we have been providing. You want to hire human-animal handlers? I want to learn from them, Valara corrected. We will pay handsomely for the knowledge and for the assistance in reforming our approach. Doyen considered this. I'll pass the message along to Earth. I think they'll be interested. As Doyen finally departed, escorted by honor guards to his ship, Princess Valara returned to Goreth's chamber. She sat down beside the war beast, something she had never done before, and simply spent time with him. Talking, listening, being present. Goreth rested his massive head in her lap and made that same contented purring sound he had made with the human. And Princess Valara understood, perhaps for the first time, what it meant to truly bond with another living being. Through the observation window, Commander Rethix watched this scene. Beside him, Thorix shook his head in wonder. Humans, Thorix muttered. They walk into our empire with no weapons, no armor, no grand fleet. Just kindness and understanding. And they change everything. Indeed, Rethix agreed. They may be the most dangerous species we have ever encountered, not because of what they can destroy, but because of what they can teach us about ourselves. On the departing human vessel, Doyen looked back at the Thexian station and smiled. It had been a good mission. Lives improved, bonds formed, understanding reached. Just another day's work. But somewhere in the vast bureaucracy of the Thexian Empire, reports were being filed, marked urgent, and sent to the highest levels of government. Reports that said humanity was not what they appeared to be, that these primitive beings possessed something the Empire had lost, a fundamental connection to life itself. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity, really meant, and it had nothing to do with weapons or warfare. It had everything to do with compassion, understanding, and the simple act of treating all beings, no matter how different, with dignity and respect. In chambers across the Thexian Empire, war beasts that had been suffering in silence felt for the first time in their lives the gentle touch of handlers who finally understood. All because one human technician had shown them the way.